Hello and welcome to the second part of ranking it and grading, every single Cup Series driver of the 2022 season. In the second part, we're probably going from 41st place, which is where the points scorers start, all the way up until, I would say, probably 25th place would be a good place to end for this video. Without any further ado, let's get right back into it. So, coming in at 41st in points, scoring a single point in his one start at Watkins Glen is Formula One legend Kimi Räikkönen. Kimi was the first to race in the long-awaited and hyped Project 91 car for Trackhouse, but unfortunately he did not make the most of it. Despite cracking the top 10 for a short while, Räikkönen got run off track on lap 44 trying to avoid a spinning Austin Dillon, and he made enough contact with the wall to end his day prematurely. Although Kimi definitely showed promise, and I hope to see him back in the 91 car next season, I have no choice but to give him an F for crashing out in his only start. IndyCar star Connor Daly came in 40th in points with a lone start at the Charlotte Roval, driving for the money team. But with probably some of the worst equipment in the field and absolutely no prior NASCAR experience, it was no surprise Daly qualified dead last and finished 34th, 3 laps down. That's all there really is to say about Daly's Cup season, so I'd say he's deserving of a flat D just for making it to the end, making it to the finish, and racing clean, I guess. Kyle Tilley made 2 starts in 2022, both on road courses for Live Fast Motorsports, where he finished 30th at Road America, and he retired early at Watkins Glen with steering issues. Tilley has very limited NASCAR experience, and with Live Fast Motorsports equipment, I would say a flat D is fitting for the road course ringer. Boris Said, one of the most infamous road course ringers, made his return to the NASCAR Cup Series in one start for MBM Motorsports at COTA, where he avoided all late race chaos and came home in 26th, completing every lap. Given his absence from the Cup Series in 2017 and MBM Motorsports' very subpar equipment, Said's performance was pretty respectable and, in my opinion, earns him a D+. Next up is yet another road course ringer, this time the German Mike Rockenfeller, who made 2 starts for Spire Motorsports in the number 77 car. He finished 29th and 30th respectively, and just like Connor Daly, had absolutely no prior NASCAR experience. Because of this and him being able to race cleanly and produce 2 relatively average finishes for the number 77 car standards, I'll give Mike a D+. Next on the list is another F1 legend, Jacques Villeneuve, a guy who you probably expect to be a road course ringer, but actually made his only start of the season in the Daytona 500 for the Team Heisberg and Rheum Brothers joint team. Despite starting in last place, Jack avoided all incidents and ended up a solid 22nd place in the Great American Race, albeit he finished 3 laps down after losing the draft due to his poor equipment. And most impressively, he locked himself into the show during qualifying, posting the fastest time out of all the 6 non-charter teams. So that said, I would say Villeneuve definitely deserves a pass, and I'm going to give him a D+. Greg Biffle made his surprising return to the Cup Series for the NY Racing Team, competing in 5 races earlier in the season. Unfortunately for Greg, all but one of his starts ended in mechanical failures for the ill-prepared number 44 car. At Spring Atlanta, the only time his car lasted until the finish, Biffle posted a remarkable 20th place finish on the lead lap, with that being really all there is to grade him on, and accounting for the fact he hasn't made a Cup start since his final race with Roush Fenway in 2016. I'm going to give Biffle a D+ for his efforts this season. Rick Ware Racing's road course specialist Joey Hand comes in next with a 34th place finish in the final standings. In 6 starts, all at road courses, Hand's season was highlighted by a 9th place qualifying run at Road America. Pretty incredible feat for Rick Ware, and along with a best finish of 20th at Sonoma. To be honest, though, Hand ran a lot better than he finished most of the time, and as a part-time driver, you want that really to be the other way around. Because of that and 2 DNFs, I'm going to have to give Hand a D+ instead of the C that I really wish I could give him. David Reagan was the highest finishing driver in the final points who was intended to be part-time. In only 4 starts, all at super speedways in the newly repaved Atlanta, Reagan put together some very impressive runs. With a worst of 24th at Talladega and a pair of top 10s in the Daytona races, Reagan definitely far exceeded expectations for the number 15 Rick Ware Racing Ford. 4 super speedway races with no DNFs is great as is, along with the 2 top 10s. On top of that, in surviving the Summer Daytona Crash Fest, I would have to say Reagan is deserving of the first B in a while. Not to mention his average finish of 14.8 is probably the best ever for a Rick Ware racing driver. And literally only 1 spot up in the standings is a driver who made nearly 9 times as many starts, and that is by far the worst full-time driver in NASCAR, Cody Ware. With 5 top 20s, his first career top 10 coming in the Summer Daytona race, and an average finish of 27.8. This was not at all a bad season for him considering all things. This is only his second basically full-time season in the Cup Series, and he improved a good bit from an average finish of 31.1 in 2021. Not to mention his equipment being some of the worst on track every weekend. On the downside, though, his number 51 car was beat in owner points by his teammate number 15 car, which pretty much had a different driver every week, and the only other full-time car he did beat in owner's points was the number 78 Live Fast entry. Simply because of his performance improvement and not having nearly as many inexperienced mistakes as last season, I'm going to give Cody a C- for 2022. Next up is Corey LaJoie, who completed his second season for Spire Motorsports, and well, it was kind of a disappointment. With the next-gen car coming, everyone, including Corey and Spire Motorsports, were talking about how the playing field will be evened and how they would see a big increase in performance, but that simply did not happen at all. Besides running up front sometimes the super speedways, his only season highlight, results-wise, was finishing 5th in the Spring Atlanta race. That was also his only top 10 the entire season. His biggest moment in the spotlight this season, however, was when he was leading towards the end of the Summer Atlanta race. Corey led 19 laps that day and was running second on the final lap before getting blocked by Chase Elliott, and ended up making hard contact with the outside wall, leading him to fall all the way back to finish 21st. This massive disappointment, coupled with his average finish only increasing from a 24.9 in 2021 to a 24.3 this season, makes his season almost seem worthy of failure, but because of those small flashes of potential, I'll send him off with a D-. Next is Kurt Busch, who of course was intended to run full-time with 2311 Racing, but ended up only making 20 starts after his notably mild practice crash at Pocono that led to the talks of the safety concerns with the next-gen car. With 8 top 10s, 5 top 5s, and his win at Kansas, Kurt Busch was locked into the playoffs and likely would have been at very least in contention for a top 10 in the final point standings. Considering this was his first year with a still growing 2311 team, Kurt proved once again that he could succeed in any car for any team and with any manufacturer. It is extremely unfortunate that his season and likely his whole career wrapped up because of his crash, but for 2022, I'd rank his pre-crash season at a B+. Dillon finished 29th in the final standings in his first season with a newly conjoined Petty GMS team, and boy, it was a mess. Pretty much the whole season, Dillon just kept inching further and further down the points, only scoring 1 top 10 the entire season at Bristol Dirt, and racking in a rather disappointing 9 DNFs, 6 of which were crash-related. His teammate Eric Jones, who we'll get to later, outperformed Ty in literally every way imaginable. Besides running up front for a large portion of said Bristol Dirt race, Ty's only time on camera was due to wrecking or getting lapped. His average finish of 22.6 is honestly a bit better than what I expected it to be, but clearly it was not good enough for Petty GMS, as towards the end of the season they announced they would be dropping him for Noah Gragson at the start of next year. While I hope to see Ty get good results in his new ride at Spire Motorsports next year, 2022 was nothing but failure for him, so I'm going to have to give him an F. Todd Gilliland completed his rookie year for Front Row Motorsports, and in my opinion, he did better than expected. His number 38 car had been turned through multiple drivers in the past few years, with notably bad performance with all of them, but Todd was able to put together a good season, all things considered. Although he was always nearly outperformed by his teammate Michael McDowell, McDowell is a veteran and was having a career-best season, so I'm not going to take a whole lot away from Todd because of that. By far the best moment for Todd in 2022 was at the Indy Road Course, where to the surprise of pretty much everyone, he ran out front all day, leading 4 laps even, and brought it home in 4th place, avoiding all the late race chaos. He only had one other top 10 coming at the Fall Talladega race, but with many other solid top 20 runs and an average finish of 23.2, I'm going to give him a flat C, considering, again, it was his rookie season and he was driving for a below-average team. Harrison Burton, another rookie, competed for the Wood Brothers racing team last year, replacing Matt DiBenedetto in a rather messy and drama-filled contract negotiation. While Burton's performance was significantly worse than DiBenedetto's, his expectations were also significantly worse, given, again, that he was a rookie and that his stats from his Xfinity and truck days are a lot worse than most realize when you take a good look at them. Just like Todd Gilliland, Harrison ended this season with 2 top 10s and 1 top 5, the top 5 coincidentally also coming at the Indy Road Course race. In fact, Harrison's season was very, very similar to Todd's, as his average finish was 22.8, but taking into account those Wood Brothers cars are basically using the same Penske equipment prepared in a Penske shops, it's pretty reasonable to say that Harrison should have performed a lot more closely to the Penske rookie Austin Cindric than to Todd Gilliland, which was absolutely not the case. Because of all that, I'm going to have to rank Burton slightly below Gilliland with a D+. Next is Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who started off the season very strong in the newly single-car operation at JTG Doherty Racing, snagging 5 top 10s and a top 5 in only the first 14 races, including a career record of 4 straight top 10s. That streak started with Ricky's season highlight, a runner-up finish to Chase Elliott at Dover, with no gimmicks or chaos, just straight speed and driving talent for Ricky. Unfortunately, after the 14th race, the Coke 600, in which Stenhouse scored his 4th consecutive top 10, he would score 0 top 10s for the rest of the entire season. This performance fall-off was overlooked by many and was arguably the worst fall-off of the season, but foreshadowing William Byron and Kyle Busch might give him a run for his money. With his average finish of a 22.8, for context, that's tied with Harrison Burton and worse than Ty Dillon, along with 9 DNFs, 7 of which were crashes, so the Recce Stenhouse joke lived on yet another season. And if not for his hot start, he certainly would have gotten an F, and F- if possible, but looking over his entire season and putting the good start into account, I'll give him a D-. And yeah, speaking of disappointing seasons, coming up next is Cole Custer, ladies and gentlemen. In his 3rd full-time season with Stewart-Haas Racing, Custer managed to still not score a single top 5 since his 2020 win at Kentucky. He only tallied 3 top 10s, never finishing better than 8th. His sole season highlight, if you can even call it that, was earning the pole at Bristol Dirt and bringing it home a respectable 13th place. And while this season, statistically speaking, was an improvement from his dreadful sophomore slump last year, he did get 1 more top 10 and went from an average finish of 21.3 to a 20.6 this year. That was not enough to save his ride. What was left of Custer's ego was absolutely pummeled, as recently as announced Ryan Preece would be replacing him next year, and Cole would be getting demoted back to the Stewart-Haas Xfinity program, likely only staying with the organization at all due to his dad being the literal team president. And I almost forgot the whole race manipulation incident at the Charlotte Roval, which resulted in a personal $100,000 fine and a docking of 50 points. So yeah, I hope Custer tears up in Xfinity next year. We already saw him win this year going part-time, but yeah, man, this season would get an F- if that's even possible, but I'm going to stick with a flat F for him. Next, we have Brad Keselowski, who from humble beginnings with a 100-point penalty for part modification to Daytona, all the way to getting disqualified for what would have been a 4th-place finish at the Fall Martinsville race, also had a very, very bad season. Yes, this is the same Brad Keselowski that finished a runner-up in the 2020 points and 6th in 2021, last year. Expectations were certainly a lot lower for him this season in his new co-owner driver role, an RFK number 6 car, but his teammate Chris Buescher outperformed him in about every way, which is pretty unacceptable for a driver that has had as great recent success as Keselowski has. He ended the year with 6 top 10s, only 1 top 5, and an average finish of 19.2 with 4 DNFs. His season highlights were winning in his dual race at Daytona, although that's what led to the massive points penalty, as well as earning the pole and finishing 8th at Texas this year. I'm very tempted to give him an F, but I'll spare him with a D-, and I just hope to see some major improvements out of that number 6 car for next season. But it's also very possible that Brad has just hit a Jimmy Johnson-style peak. Next, although he didn't back up his win from 2021, Michael McDowell had a career season this year, bringing in 12 top 10s and 2 top 5s with only 2 DNFs across the whole year. To emphasize that means McDowell finished top 10 in 1 out of every 3 races. In every category but wins just about, he blew his previous career best season of 2021 out of the water. 7 more top 10s, 41 more laps led, and went from an average finish of 20.5 to a 16.7. That is the exact same average finish as Kyle Busch this season. McDowell would have finished 20th in points ahead of Eric Almirola if not for a 100-point penalty following a modified part at Pocono. With this huge performance increase, it was clear McDowell was able to step up to the plate and adapt to the next-gen car better than most other drivers, which is exactly what a smaller team like Front Row Motorsports needs. With very little to no negatives from McDowell this season, I'm going to have to give him the second A of this video, and the only other being AJ Allmendinger. Justin Haley raced full-time this season in the new number 31 Kaulig Racing entry, and to my surprise, he crushes expectations. I always saw Haley as an average Xfinity and truck driver, able to win here and there, but never really being dominant. That being said, when it was announced Haley would be moving full-time to the Kaulig Cup car, I expected a season similar to Todd Gilliland or Harrison Burton, if not worse. But 4 top 10s, including 3 top 5s and only 3 DNFs, led Haley all the way to a very solid 22nd place points finish. He also beat his full-time teammate car, the number 16, by 4 spots in the owner's points, which is very impressive considering the split lineup of AJ Allmendinger, Noah Gragson, and Daniel Hemrick in that car. All drivers who, before going into this season, I thought were more talented than Haley. Although I feel he's very close to an A-, I'm going to give Haley a B+ for 2022. Chris Buescher is next in line, who also came off a career-best season. Buescher picked up his second career win and his first non-fog shortened win at Bristol, as well as logging career highs in top 5s with 3 and top 10s with 10. Given this, it seems Buescher would be in the running for an A, but a 21st place points finish is a little low and not too representative of his season, mostly due to 6 DNFs, all of which were crashes, and missing the Gateway race entirely due to COVID. His average finish of 17.9 was, pretty average for him, and actually was 0.6 worse than in 2021. With all things considered here, I certainly can't give him an A, but for all of his good moments, I would say he definitely earned a flat B. And yeah, that's actually end of the top, going into the top 20, so I'll be in for the second part of the video. If you did like this, make sure to like and subscribe. And I'll have the final video with the top 20 guys in points coming out fairly soon here, probably within the week or next week. But yeah, make sure to tune in for that. Until then, peace out.